Recently, I did a poll on my channel to see what your favorite braid-to-leader knots are. And it seems like in the bass fishing world, it's either the double uni knot, the Alberto knot, or the FG knot. Now in this video, like I did with my fluorocarbon and braid knot, I'm gonna put those three knots head to head to head. I feel like I kind of know what the result might be, but I'm also very interested to see what percentage of the overall line strength do you lose by tying each of these specific knots. Now I'm gonna be tying each of these knots with three different line combinations: 50-pound braid to 20-pound fluorocarbon, 30-pound braid to 16-pound fluorocarbon, and 10-pound braid to 10-pound fluorocarbon. Each knot will be tied three different times with each different line combination, and an average of them will be the final result for the test. So let's get started. Wow. Gee-money. That's somewhere around probably 67%. So that actually is not good. Now the first line combination I'm going to be testing out is 50-pound braid to a 20-pound fluorocarbon leader. I use this a lot when I am flipping and pitching, especially when I'm doing that in grass. I'm going to tie my braid to leader knot, and on the braid side, I'm going to attach it to a post using a friction knot. And on the other side, I'm going to attach fluorocarbon again with a friction knot to my push-pull force gauge. Then I'm going to crank that gauge until my knot breaks, and then I will take a reading of when that knot broke. The first one is going to be a double uni. This was actually the first knot that I learned how to tie two lines together. And that fluorocarbon stretches. Ooh. Here's a double uni. Just broke at 13.1 pounds. Let's give it another whirl. Just so you guys know that every time I make one of these tests, I try to put the knot in the exact same spot. That's why I have this piece of cardboard sitting right there. That way it's at least as consistent as I can get it. Uni knot number 2. $14.2 on that one. So overall, this double uni with 50-pound braid to 20-pound fluorocarbon averaged 13.466 pounds, which means it broke at 13.4 pounds. That's somewhere around probably 67%. So that actually is not good. I'm not gonna lie, that's not great, but it might be different when you get into different line sizes. So that's what we're gonna test out. Now the Alberto knot is actually one that I still use quite a bit. This to me is a really good knot. It's the quickest knot that I feel like is very strong, and I can tie it when I'm out in 4-foot waves and the wind's blowing super hard. So I still actually use this knot quite a bit. I'm anxious to see how it compares to all of the knots. Wow, okay. First test with the Alberto knot, and we scored a 17.7. That piece of fluorocarbon that's sticking out, that's actually my tag in, and it went inside of there. So just interested to see where these things all break. Now I just got done with the Alberto knot, and it averaged 18.03 pounds with that 50-pound braid to 20-pound fluorocarbon leader. It's much better than the double uni knot, according to this particular line test. Interesting thing about the double uni is I actually did a poll on BassFishingHQ just the other night, and so far the double uni is the knot, the braid to leader knot that most people still tie. It's coming in at 45% overall. So far, 45% of those people out there might have to start tying a new knot. All right, now I'm gonna be tying the FG knot, and I actually went and got a pair of sun gloves because the way that I tie the FG, I go around these two fingers, and if I don't do that, it kind of cuts into my fingers. So it's nice to have a pair of sun gloves. I usually do about 2 full wraps, and then I end it with a risotto finish. So far my FG knot's the only one that doesn't fit in my circle. It's a long knot. Wow. Gee-money. Here is my FG knot, and you can see that my fluorocarbon, that's where it came out. It actually broke about 3 or 4 inches up the line. So that's really interesting. It broke at 21.6 pounds. Dude. It did the exact same thing. There's my FG knot and my fluorocarbon. I have about, I don't know, 3 inches there, 4 inches, and it broke at 22.3 pounds. So on average, the FG knot broke at 22.06 pounds. Again, with 50-pound braid to a 20-pound fluorocarbon leader. Just crazy that that knot is that much better.
This video is brought to you by Omnia Tackle's Premium Pro app. We all know the secret to catching bass is learning how to find them quickly. The Premium Pro app allows you to do just that. Maybe it's the spring and the warmest water you find is holding the biggest bass. Simply overlay the water temperature layer on your map and you will know exactly where to go. Or maybe it's the summer and the bass are relating to hard structure areas. Simply overlay the bottom composition layer to find the hardest bottom areas on your favorite lake. There are so many more options, and right now if you sign up for Premium Pro, you will be entered in a contest to win a brand new forward-facing sonar system. So if you want to help support the Bass Fishing HQ channel and have a shot at winning, click the link in the description and sign up for Premium Pro today.
All right, the next line combination I'm going to be using is 30-pound braid to a 16-pound fluorocarbon leader. Now, this particular combination I use a lot when I'm using a fluke style bait, like a caffeine shad on a bait cast rod. This is also something that I use a lot for just my standard Texas rigs when I'm fishing in shallow water. And this is something that you can use for a topwater bait. I know some of you might be like, well, Tyler, you should be using monofilament with those topwaters, but when I use a topwater, I'm using a very small leader. Usually it's about a foot, maybe a little bit longer, sometimes even a little bit shorter. And it doesn't matter, I've tested it both ways, whether you use mono or fluorocarbon. When you're using that small of a leader, it doesn't impact the bait. So you could absolutely use this with a topwater. All right, just like before, I'm gonna start off with a double uni knot. This broke on average at 12.66, which is roughly 79% of the overall line strength. So interestingly enough, that's over 10% better than the 50-pound braid to 20-pound fluorocarbon as far as percentage goes. I feel very strongly that the Alberto is easier to tie than a double uni. And I found it fascinating that so many people still even tie the double uni, because the Alberto to me just seems a lot faster, and so far we're seeing that it's actually stronger. All right, so on that particular line combination, the Alberto once again was better than the double uni, and it scored an average of 14.66, making it about a 91% knot strength knot. As I get all situated here for the FG, I tell you one thing I'm very interested to see is, will we get 100% out of our line like we did on the first test? I'm not exactly sure what the breaking strength of this 16-pound fluorocarbon is that I'm using, like the actual breaking strength. I'm guessing it's somewhere around 17 pounds, but maybe we'll be able to tell that by tying the FG this time around. Well, broke right at 16 pounds. Now, interestingly enough, let's look at the knot here. Looks like this was the first FG knot that actually broke. You can see it broke right there inside the knot itself. The other ones with the 20-pound fluorocarbon, I never had them break inside. It was always the line. So maybe we'll see that go up here in just a moment. But 16 pounds on the first one. Gosh. Wow. Wow. Okay. I gotta turn this on. Oh, it just clicked off. It was 18.2. 18.2. So yet again, the FG knot is far superior to those other knots, the Alberto knot and the double uni. So it's just interesting to me to kind of see the percentages. Some of you may be interested in this, some of you may like just not care. All right, now we are moving on to the 10-pound test braid to 10-pound test fluorocarbon leader. This is something that I use a lot. I use this for pretty much all my finesse fishing applications, whether that's a wacky rig, a Nico rig, a Ned rig, a Damiki rig, even on a drop shot I will use this. I usually step down a little bit more, like 8-pound test, maybe even 6-pound test with a drop shot, but I use 10-pound test a lot, so I'm very anxious to see how this knot performs. Now, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. Because this is such a small diameter 10-pound test braid in fluorocarbon, I've always just used an Alberto knot. And the reason being is because it ties up so easy, it goes through those big loops on a spinning rod very easily. But now after doing these tests and realizing just how good that FG knot is in comparison to those other knots, this may make a big difference. Like I may be tying the FG knot a lot more often, and we're about to find that out right now. That was such a light break. Oh, the exact same as test number 1, 8.2. All right, just got done with the double uni in that particular test. The overall average was 8.06, which is a little bit better than the other test with the double uni. So it's just interesting to see as you have smaller and smaller line diameter, how these tests are doing a little bit different. .9. 8.9. Ooh, over 10. What the? Wow. That was a good test with Mr. Albert. We got an 11.1. Overall breaking strength on the Alberto Knight was 9.46. That's pretty good considering this is 10-pound test braid to fluorocarbon. So interested to see how that FG knot does. First test with 10-pound braid to 10-pound fluorocarbon leader. I feel like there's no way I'm gonna get over 11 like I did with that other. Nope. First test, gosh. Oh my gosh. Gosh, dude. It just cannot be beat. Well, I'm turning off the lights. That concludes our test. The FG knot averaged 11.56, again with 10-pound braid to 10-pound fluorocarbon leader. I didn't think it would get much better than the Alberto, but that knot was almost 20% better. It just goes to show you how good of a knot the FG is. Now, if you guys are wanting to see the best braided line knots and the best fluorocarbon knot, I'm gonna leave those videos right here. Here's the best braid knot, here's the best fluorocarbon. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, comment below, and I will see you guys in the next one.